Hello, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of May 28, 2024, the Marine Resources Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Associate Member Branson, followed by a vocation by Associate Member Erskine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come together today at Virginia Marine Resources Commission to debate important marine resource issues. Allow us the knowledge and wisdom to fairly and equitably decide issues based on our best knowledge available. In this we pray, amen.
Amen. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful Memorial Day holiday weekend. Let's get us started here at the agenda. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff to the current agenda? It said, matters before the commission. Motion to approve. Got a motion to approve from Mr. Erskine, a second from Mr. Branson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Jamie, let the record reflect that Mr. Hand is not here. All right, on to the minutes. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes for the commission, from the commission members or staff for the April 23, 2024 commission meeting minutes? It said, motion to approve. A motion to approve
Second.
from Mr. Erskine, a second from Mr. Minor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No abstentions. All right, so let's swear in VMRC and VIM staff that may be speaking and presenting testimony during today's commission meeting. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, Randy, looks like you're up.
Commissioner, members of the commission, good morning. Hit the page 2 items. We have 5 items. Item 2A, Army Corps of Engineers is requesting authorization to place up to 3,500,000 cubic yards of dredgeable material per annual dredge cycle from the Tribell Shoal Federal Channel, Goose Hill Channel, Dancing Point, Swan Point, Jordan Point, Harrison Bar, Windmill Point Shoal, and City Point Shoal on adjacent previously approved and utilized open water disposal areas in the James River in James City County, Surrey County, Charles City, Prince George, and the City of Hopewell. Staff recommends approval of the project with a permanent expiration date of May 31st, 2026, and reconsideration of the project by the commission following staff review of a sediment fate modeling studies required by the James River Federal Channel Memorandum of Understanding signed by the Commissioner and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Norfolk District. Item 2B and item 2C, you're acting today as the, as well as 2D, as the Essex County, in this case, Beach and Dunes Authority. Essex County will hopefully readopt the wetlands and the beach and dune ordinance in December of this year. They have delayed it to basically reconstitute a new board. And with the amendment that was a few from the 2023 legislature, they have not as yet adopted the new ordinances, and they're so they're, I think the word is they're stalled. So today you're acting as the Essex County Wetlands and Beach and Dune Authority. Item 2B, Allison Schlobum is requesting authorization to replace an existing groin with a 48-foot long timber low profile groin, 14 linear feet of new bulkhead, return wall, and a 6 by 6 foot access stair structure along the Rappahannock River shoreline at 158 Pops Lane in Essex County. Requires both the VMRC subaqueous and a wetlands permit. And in this case, you're acting as a wetlands board, I apologize. Item 2C, John Hollingsworth is requesting authorization to construct a timber low profile groin extending 48 feet channel mean low water adjacent to an existing boat ramp along the Rappahannock River at 218 Garnet Lane in Essex County. Requires both a beaches and dunes permit. And item 2D, Stephen Wilkinson is requesting authorization to construct a new 105-foot long bulkhead, 2 feet channel, an existing failed bulkhead, and 3 low-profile groins 48-foot channel to the bulkhead along the Rappahannock River at 101 Wildwood Place in Essex County, requires the beaches and dunes permit. And finally, item 2E, the Bush Park Camping Resort, is requesting authorization to place a boat ramp in existing footprint, remove existing jetties, and replace them with two 62-foot low-profile jetties, two new 6-foot by 7-foot tending piers, and replace an existing pier with a new 6 by 423-foot community pier with 15 4-foot, 30-foot finger piers and 30 mooring piles for a total of 28 slips along Bush Park Creek in Middlesex County. Will recommend approval of the royalty of $570 for the filling of 1,140 square feet at 50 cents a square foot. That's the boat ramp. And a royalty of $16,416 for the new pier, for a total royalty of $16,986 for the encroachment fill at Speaker's Bottom.
Is there any questions from the commission, Chief Owen? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on any of these matters from the P2 items? That being said, the matter is before the commission.
Move to approve page 2 items on the agenda.
Motion to approve for Mr. Mom. Got a second for Mr. Branson. Is there any further discussion? That being said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, there are no consent agenda items. Item 4. Kelsey, I don't guess we need a closed session. There's no items for us to have a closed session for, is there? Thank you. And on to number 5, Rachel Peabody's up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so today I have 2 applications to Virginia's Abandoned or Derelict Vessel Grant Program for your review and approval. And as our standard update, we have released $832,000 in grants to localities, which leaves us a remaining $1.1 million for granting. We have been holding 20% reserves just in case there's cost overages in any of the projects. We have those reserves available to the grantees. And we currently have available $934,000 for granting. And we have funded the removal, and most of them have been removed, 59 vessels in the program so far. So our first application is by the City of Newport News. This is their second application to us. They're requesting $40,000 in advance funds for the removal and disposal of 4 abandoned vessels at their city-owned Leeward Municipal Marina in the James River. This is the marina directly adjacent to the James River Bridge in front of that large high-rise condominiums there. There's currently 4 vessels that have been abandoned at the marina. The city has taken ownership of all 4 titles. And they are going to, if their application is approved, they're going to do a competitive RFP process to hire a contractor and to get those removed. Their first grant is going really well, and they most likely will be able to remove these fairly quickly. Currently, these vessels have been sitting at the dock for quite some time, and the city's dockmaster is pumping them out and maintaining them until they can get removed. So there you can see the pictures of the vessels. So the second application is by Northumberland County. And it's a larger application because it's weighted by this large vessel that you see here at the bottom right, which I'll explain in a little bit. They're requesting $400,000 for advance funds for the environmental remediation, removal, and disposal of 3 abandoned vessels in the tidal waters of Northumberland County. The largest vessel there that you see is an 82-foot Old Navy vessel. It's wood with lead ballast that was being towed by a private owner he was towing it with a pontoon boat, and it's sunk. And it's sunk in front of this private property's pier. And the private property owner, that happened in November of 2023, that private property owner now no longer has access to his pier or his vessel. It's a brand new home for him in which he was hoping to be able to utilize over the summer. The private property owner has been working with an attorney and the U.S. Coast Guard, the VMRC, and the Army Corps of Engineers to try and get this vessel removed. However, unfortunately, the person that owns the vessel doesn't have the finances to remove them. The U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have determined that it's not in a federal channel, and so therefore they don't have the authority to compel removal. Our law enforcement has worked a considerable amount of hours on this, and we're in court for this vessel just in April. There was a judgment. The judgment required the owner to work closely with the county and the VMRC to do as we need to get the vessel removed. However, the judgment did not compel them to fund or remove the vessel themselves. So as such, the county has received one preliminary bid so far, which is the bid that they used in order to create this grant application, which came in at about $225,000. They're asking for about 30% in unforeseen costs such as legal, administrative, environmental. One of the reasons that they're asking for this is because most likely the ADV program after this month is no longer going to be funded. So after we turn over our fiscal year, our funds won't be available for any of those unforeseen costs. So the goal of the county is not to be left holding the bag. They've also applied for 2 other vessels that they've received preliminary bids for. One is on Ways Creek, which is a top productive oyster lease there, and the other is at Lodge Creek, which is adjacent to the public boat ramp. Both of those, the bids came in at just under $30,000, and the county is asking for additional $20,000 in order for unforeseen costs. So both of these requests do align with the VMRC Abandoned or Derelict Vessel Grant Program Manual. I do want to reiterate that upon approval, the localities will start a competitive bidding process for the vessels. This is the standard bidding process for all localities that's governed by the Code of Virginia that requires competitive bids. Based off of those, they will have a better price, and in that bid, they can also include a request to handle the titling work for Northumberland County. So it's also important to note that this will be the first time Northumberland County has taken on the responsibility of removing those vessels. They don't have the ordinance to clean the title themselves, so they are going to have to do the work, or their contractor is going to have to do the work to remove the title, clean it in order for it to be removed legally. And the enforceable part of our grant program is the agreements that we write with the grantees. Those are written based off of the needs of VMRC and the grantee. Our standard agreement does mandate that receipts for all the expenditures are given to us and requires any unused funds be returned at the end of the program. So at the end of this, after the competitive bidding is done, they will provide me those receipts, and any unspent monies will go back to the ADV program. So in short, these applications total $440,000 to fund the removal of 7 abandoned or derelict vessels in Newport News and Northumberland County.
Any questions? Ms. Pilani? Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on these derelict vessels? That being said, oh, come on. Please state your name for the record, please.
Dave Bugg with Rumsey and Bugg in Irvington, Virginia. I'm here for several of the waterfront property owners on Bridge Creek. I've seen this vessel. It's been there for quite some time. It's a beautiful creek. It's a tributary off of the Little Wacomico, and it is badly marred by this. And I would hope that the commission would see clear to award the grant. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? That being said, matters before the commission.
Motion to approve the staff recommendation for the removal of these vessels.
Got a motion to approve, Mr. Erskine, got a second, Mr. Meyer. Any further discussion? That being said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Mr. Madden, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Okay.
Take care of that.
While this is loading, Mr. Commissioner, by the way, good morning, everyone. I have a housekeeping measure to mention. If you look at the back of the Zapata Haney Corporation Omega Protein, item number 8, that's a letter that's referenced in my issue section of my evaluation that seeks clarification as to who constructed the bulkhead, the after-the-fact bulkhead, when the construction occurred, who authorized the alignment, and why we were not notified of the need to revise the permit. I've mentioned this in my report, but I just wanted to make sure that the record of the included that piece of information. By your leave, Zapata Haney Omega Protein Incorporated requests after-the-fact authorization to retain a 181 linear foot replacement bulkhead constructed and backfilled channelward of the previous permitted alignment. In addition, they are seeking authorization before the fact for construction to include the construction and backfilling of a 194 linear foot replacement bulkhead and a 114-foot long by 10-foot wide replacement commercial pier section adjacent to their property situated along Cockrell Creek at 610 Menhaden Road in Northumberland County. Let's take a closer look. I'm going to be making references to a couple of things here, but this is the main plant down in Reedville, and I've circled it in yellow. I apologize, it may not be that bright, but I'm going to jump in a little bit closer. I'm going to be referring repeatedly to two structures which are immediately adjacent to the after-the-fact portion of the project, and that's the raw box here and the control house. These will show up on photographs a little bit later in my presentation. As I alluded to a few moments ago, the project is located along Cockrell Creek at the Zapata Haney Omega Protein Fish Oil Refinery in Reedville. The applicant was requesting after-the-fact authorization to retain a 181 linear foot bulkhead section and the construction and backfilling that was backfilled 3 feet channelward of the permit alignment. They additionally seek authorization to construct a 114-foot long by 10-foot commercial replacement pier section. I take that back, it's a 8-foot wide section, and 194 linear feet of new bulkheading. On February 27th, 2013, the applicant received VMRC's permit to construct and backfill a 375 linear foot batter pile replacement bulkhead next to the existing raw box and control room structures. I have it out here in red, in blue. That's the 2012-13 timeframe. That was what was originally permitted. In addition to the bulkhead, there was also a pier section you'll see in the upper right-hand corner that was authorized in February of 2013. Upon receipt of the permit, Edgewater Construction constructed a section, 181-foot section of bulkheading. This contractor, Edgewater Construction, is no longer in business, and the pier addition, as I mentioned, was never constructed. Let's take a look at that. This is what was originally permitted. It's a 7-foot wide section. The control, that probably right there, that's either the control room or the raw boxes in this location right here. It's just referred to as a building. It's just 7 feet wide. red, this is basically the conceptualization of the entire project. The red outlined area, what was originally permitted in 2013. What was constructed is in green, so it steps out an additional 3 feet. So that's the after the fact part of it. And then if you look to the right, this area right here, this was originally permitted. And they also paid the royalty for it. And this is new. So you want to keep this and build this. In 2023, the applicant sought reauthorization because this is expired in 2021. They sought reauthorization for the work that hadn't been completed and contracted Bayshore Design to serve as the authorizing agent. Once on site, Bayshore immediately noted a discrepancy between the previously permitted bulkhead, which is in red, and the after-the-built alignment, which is in green. The wall, which was permitted to be built 7 feet in front of the original bulkhead, was constructed 10 feet. This resulted in an unauthorized 479 square foot encroachment over the Commonwealth state-owned submerged lands. This discrepancy was noted in the drawings. In the new application, I was informed by phone. All of this was submitted in August 1st, 2023. Here again, a little more closer look here. And this is what's proposed beyond. Let me go back here to tell you where I'm standing. I'm pretty much right here with the drawings. So this is what Craig Palabinski put together for the resubmittal. He included all this information, and now what we're doing is we're finishing up the bulkhead, going down in front of the raw box and then control room, and then we head down a little further down. The purpose of this, by the way, is to create a crane pad, place to put. My understanding is that the product is taken from the ships and put directly on into the raw box. So this is the area that they seek reauthorization of this and then new authorization for that. According to the applicant's letter dated March 22, 2024, which I referenced when I first came on board here, the site has multiple broken pilings beneath the water surface stemming from an old building that was removed in the 1980s. These created obstructions along the bottom, which Omega assumed led to their contractor's decision to deviate from the permitted alignment and the additional 3 feet of encroachment. This letter advised that no one from Omega Protein authorized the additional encroachment, and Omega was unaware of the construction deviation from the original permit until it was discovered in 2023 by Craig Palabinski. What I've done here in this drawing is kind of show you a little bit. The perspective's a little odd, but the red line, I tried to give you some sort of a sense of what is sticking out beyond what was originally permitted. The line which I have on the laser basically is the line where the original bulkhead was supposed to go, and anything to the left of that line is what was not authorized. I will point out at this point that the Northumberland County Wetland Board approved this project unanimously at their September 12, 2023 public hearing. And again, another attempt by me to show you the red shows where it's stepped out. That's 3 feet additional. It was supposed to run straight back to this building, which is the carpentry shop, but it's supposed to go right straight back, but instead, because of the construction, what was all the material that was down here, they moved it out, built the wall, and then filled it and put concrete, and concreted it so it could support a vehicle. Now what we've done, I want to show you the replacement pier section. We have turned around the corner And the control house is to the left, and now we're looking along the broad face of the refinery. The crane's pad's gonna right in there. But this is a new pier section that's gonna be rebuilt. Here's a little view of the crane pad. In the form of a summary and recommendation, staff appreciates the applicant and agent self-reporting the discrepancy of the bulkhead's construction in their new application. We're concerned, however, that the discrepancy wasn't originally reported, and now there's no contractor to explain or account for the violation. Staff does agree that the unauthorized bulkhead and backfill should now be permitted, however, with appropriate civil charges and triple permit fees as outlined in the Commission's civil charge matrix, and in keeping with Section 28.212D of the Code of Virginia. Staff believes that the familiarity of Omega with the permitting process, coupled with the 479 square feet of unauthorized encroachment and filling of state-owned submerged lands, places the after-the-fact portion of this project in the moderate degree of environmental impact and a moderate degree of noncompliance. This amounts to a recommended civil charge of $6,000. Staff also recommends a triple permit fee of $900, triple royalty of $2,395 for the unauthorized encroachment of the bulkhead, and an encroachment royalty of $1,824 for the proposed industrial replacement pier. Should the applicant not agree to the recommended civil charges, triple permit fees, and triple royalties, staff recommends that the Commission require the removal of the unauthorized bulkhead section prior to any approval for new construction at this industrial site. And I will point out that Omega Protein is available here, and they have also agreed to all the figures that were mentioned in the evaluation. Of course, I'm here for any questions that you might have or anything I could clarify.
Is there any questions from the commission for Mr. Mag?
Thank you.
Is the applicant or representative for the applicant here and wish to speak?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record in the microphone. Raise your right hand.
Yes, sir. My name is Andy Hall. I'm the general manager of Omega Protein.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
All I would like to say is that, as Mr. Madsen described it, that is what happened. That whole interior area where that bulkhead was moved out 3 feet was at one time a covered building. The whole area, it's about 2 feet of water. It's enclosed by the offshore pier there. We accept responsibility that we did not catch this when it was originally done. We didn't need the extra 3 feet. We could have made it just all. Mr. Patterson called it a crane pad. It's really to drive a forklift down if we have to. But as I say, when we made the application for the new permit, it was discovered by Bay Shore, and we immediately self-reported it, and we accept the commission's fines and levies because we should have caught it when it happened, but we did not.
Any questions from the commission?
I just have one. Did you have a project manager that was regulating that and watching the building of it?
No, ma'am, we did not. It was Water's Edge, and we just turned it over to him. We really don't have any in-house people that do that kind of work.
Just I know how much, the only thing that concerns me is generally with something like that, that would have been noticeable that you would have realized it had gone out 3 more feet.
As I say, we should have noticed it.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak in support of this project? Anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition? That being said, matters before the commission.
Move to approve staff
staff recommendations.
A motion to approve staff recommendations from Mr. Minor, a second from Mr. Bransom. Any further discussion? Being said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think you're at it again.
Okay. While that's loading, I want to make you aware of the fact that I received a letter of support from one of the co-applicants, the Downriver co-applicant on this part of that was received after we started. So now we'll shift our attention to the Potomac River. And this is TIG Advisors, LP et al., are requesting authorization to install armor stone over 2 existing 60-foot timber groin structures along the Potomac River at 356 Devil's Boneyard Road, in Northumberland County. The project is protested by a nearby waterfront property. For those who might be familiar with the upper part of the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River, when we were doing our analysis of this, and doing a little bit of fetch calculations, we determined that there was a 52-mile fetch northwest from this spot. The yellow balloon shows where it is. So we're at the mouth of the Potomac River as it confluences with the Chesapeake Bay. The project is in the Ophelia section of Northumberland County at the confluence of the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River. Many of these lots within this subdivision have previously installed bulkheads, riprap, revetments. Some properties are unarmored. Many of these lots have timber groins in various states of repair. This area gets a lot of action whenever we have a nor'easter or as Mr. Headley and Mrs. Kellen will tell you, there's a lot of activity right here. It's a very dynamic area. The project includes the replacement of an existing timber bulkhead and a riprap flanking protection. These portions of the project are all landward of our authority. They also propose to construct a private pier. This is statutorily authorized by Section 28.2, 1203A5 of the code. Those aren't before us today. But what is before us, the jurisdictional components before the commission include the installation of armor stone over 2 existing 60-foot groins on opposing sides of the property. And let's take a closer look at some of the players here. There's a little closer look at the site. If you'll notice, get the drawing here. Groin, all the way down the beach, all the way down. And because it's such a dynamic area, some of them are doing just fine, some of them aren't. I'll also point out that in Northumberland County, there's an increasing trend toward the use of stone groin because of the magnitude of the action here. Let's get a little bit closer, show some of the players. Here's the applicant's property, right here, the bulkhead. That's going to be replaced, but that's landward of mean low water. They're also planning on putting in some flanking protection here as well as a pier. What's before us are these 2 groins, the armoring of these 2 groins. At this time, I'd like to point out the location of the Protestants lot, about 4 lots upstream. We received a letter of support from the co-applicant, Mr. Williamson, which is originally in your packet. And then we also got a letter of support, which I just mentioned to you a few moments ago. The project is protested by the property owners Ms. Ann McMahon, if I'm not pronouncing that, I apologize properly, who has property at 446 Devil's Wood Yard Road, a few houses upstream of the applicant's property. In her email received April 11th, 2024, Ms. McMahon appears to attribute the loss of beach sand along her waterfront community to the construction of stone groins. She believes the additional stone will further destabilize the beach. She's asking that the armor stone not be added to the existing groins. We've received an email in support of the project from Mr. Alan Williamson, a co-applicant for the project, as well as a letter of support from Ms. Deborah Loving. This is what the project looks like. This is a drawing supplied by the agent for the project, showing the proximity of the bulkhead to mean low water, as well as the location. And you can see on the picture at opposing ends there, you'll see the two groins. There's a lot going on in this particular drawing, but the issues before us have to do with the addition of the armor stone on these two groins right here. And because of the proximity of the property lines to the groins, I required that the adjacent property owners, the ones immediately adjacent, become co-applicant. So that's why it's an et al. And then the property owners further outboard of that were also notified as well. This is a profile, a typical profile of what the two groins will look like. This is the profile of the armor stone over the groin, and it shows it's a little bit proud. It's a little bit proud of mean low water. It's a little bit too high profile. But I've discussed this with the agent, and the agent's amenable to a revision. Also, you'll note that the base width of the groin, once there are flanks on both sides of the timber, it'll have a 12-foot base width, and it'll be 4 feet above the maximum height. Will be 4 feet above, and that's at the landward end. And there's a view looking upstream. The Virginia Institute of Marine Science has advised that the existing groin field, which is partially pictured here, in the area appear to be functioning, and recommends that the timber groins be repaired and replaced, and that the stone not be installed. The construction of the larger armored groins around existing timber structures removes the original low profile configuration and raise the groin elevation, resulting in an increased potential to arrest available sediment delivery to down-drift properties. If, however, they go on to say, if, however, the additional armor stone is approved, they recommend filling the groin cells with clean sand to reduce down-drift sediment transport. The Northumberland County Wetland Board unanimously approved the project as proposed at their March 12 hearing. Let's take a few more look around a little bit. This is the updrift groin. This is on the Williamson property. And now I've turned around and I'm looking downdrift. Notice the groin's working all back here. And this is the other 60-foot groin. And we're very close to the edge of the property line here. And now I'm stepping all the way toward the end and looking downdrift. I believe this is very likely to be the Loving building, which I understand from the agent has now been moved back off the edge. And I think that's about it for me. While the commission staff is sensitive to the issues raised by the protestant, staff believes that a properly designed and installed armor stone groin is a more durable structure than a timber groin in such a dynamic wave environment. As I pointed out earlier, the fetch at the applicant's shoreline is essentially unlimited, measuring approximately 57 miles to the north-northwest, 33 miles to the northwest, and 18 miles to the northeast. VIMS advises that the local sand supply appears to be sufficient for the existing groins in this reach of the Potomac River. Accordingly, after evaluating the merits of the project against the concerns expressed by those in opposition to the project, and after considering all the factors contained in section 28.2, 1205 of the Code of Virginia, staff recommends approval of the project without beach nourishment, conditioned upon receipt of revised project drawings reducing the height of the terminal ends of the groins to mean low water. This will maintain the existing low-profile design and reduce the potential loss of sand to down-dip properties. That last statement, I spoke with the agent for the project, Dr. Claudette LaJoy, and she is amenable to making the changes in the profile to make it low profile. As I mentioned a moment ago, the agent for the project, Dr. LaJoy, is here, and a representative of the protestant is here as well. If you have any questions for me, I would be more than happy, of course, to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Madden from the committee?
Thank you, sir.
Is the applicant or representative of the applicant present and wish to speak? Are you an attorney?
I'm not an attorney.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Claudette LaJoy, Solstice Environmental, agent for the project.
Say it in the microphone.
Claudette LaJoy, Solstice Environmental, agent for the applicant. I don't know. I don't want to go into your computer system. So I just have a couple slides that'll be very similar to what Mr. Madden showed. And most importantly, like he said, we have agreed to the staff recommendation to reduce the stone to make it a more low profile, which will overall reduce the amount of stone that we feel was in opposition by one of the neighbors.
And I provided IT support.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, John.
I'm a Mac user, so again, just an overall review. We don't have to go through that. Just one more slide to show, like Mr. Madden did, the blue outline shows the location of the application. We have letters of support that were from the adjacent property owners that again are also included as applicants of the project. The TIG is doing some work to make the beach, getting to the beach more accessible on their properties, and so they were included as the applicants. We just also, because of including those adjacent property owners, we had to include the adjacent property owners, and they had no opposition to the project as well. A third actual letter of support that I don't think made it into your binders this morning was from the Mowbrays, who are on the top left part of your screen, who are upstream and did support the project as it was presented, but we feel they would not have any issue with less stone as staff recommended. Again, the one neighbor, Ms. McCann, who had sent the protest letter, is here today, and so we certainly appreciate always when other homeowners want to be involved in the project. We have gone through a number of correspondence with her to make sure we could understand the issue. Mr. Madden was involved in all that correspondence and has that for the file. I don't think we were, in all honesty, able to come to a resolution. I think it's the use of the stone, which is the factor, but she's here to tell you her thoughts. Just a couple other photos, as you can see. Jeff showed you some, or Mr. Madden showed you some at high tide. These are a couple at low tide, just to give you a better understanding of what's happening. Again, took off all the busyness that he had in the first slide for all the components that have already been approved by VMRC, as well as Northumberland County and the Army Corps of Engineers. So the only thing we're looking at today are just the addition of the stone for the two existing groins. And again, just to highlight that the red line is showing something more in line of what VMRC staff is recommending, and we are agreeable to that recommendation to reduce the amount of stone. And I can answer any questions for you.
Any questions from the commission? No speaker. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in support of this project? In support?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record. Raise your right hand.
Alan Williamson.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
All right, thanks. So I am the Williamson neighbor that they aforementioned. So I am on the west side of this property. When they proposed this to us, we thought it was great. They're new neighbors coming in and really taking over, doing things that had not been done for quite some time. So current state of the property, I would say that these pictures are actually not quite up to date, because we were there this weekend and there is a lot of erosion on both on our property and certainly on theirs. The bulkhead that you've seen pictured up here has also it's starting to bow out and go in to the river if they are not able to take care of this. So I did read the proposed, I guess the engineer's disagreement with this, and I think it's based on the height of the proposed armor stone. And again, we keep hearing the word potential of lost sand or beach down the river. These beaches kind of ebb and flow with seasons and years. Some years we have a lot more beach, other years not as much. So I was okay even with the higher amount of stone, because I think it gives more protection, it will last longer, and the use of the stone itself, I think, is both more durable and environmentally friendly. They're not going to have to go in 5, 10, maybe even 15 years and replace rotted wood with a new wood bulkhead or jetty, however you describe it. And well, as I was saying, the pictures are a little dated, right? So this weekend, it looks a lot worse than it did in those pictures. So I'm thinking time is of the essence. As the gentleman previously spoke, it had been approved and they were ready to go. This was supposed to already be in the works. And so some of this erosion may have been prevented had they gotten to work on the proposed start date, but they haven't. So I guess all in all, I'm here to support the project and really hope that these guys are able to get going soon so they can, prevent a lot more loss of their land and our land as well, and the adjacent homeowner.
Any questions, Mr. Branson?
Yes, sir. You said you were west of the applicant. Is that 394?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're one of the co-applicants then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't let Ms. LaJoy know that I was coming, or she might have, been a little more prepared, or at least knew that I was here.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in support of this project? All right. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition to this project? Anyone in the audience, please come forward. Please state your name for the record and microphone and raise your right hand.
Yes, sir. My name is Ann McMahon.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. When I first heard about this project, my initial concern was of the armoring of the jetties, the groins that were there, that have not really functioned well for many years. I had never heard about, forgive me, I'm not a scientist, so I had never heard about this toe rock. So anyway, I'm here. Wooden groins have worked. They've worked well. Mine have been in place for 30 years. They're still doing a great job. What's happened is down our beach, further down from us, a rock jetty was put in a couple of years ago. Now, from what I'm beginning to understand now, it's too high. It's created havoc on our beach. And so when I saw armoring of the jetties, my radar went up very quickly, and I thought this is not a good idea. I realize that a lot of other people are in agreement with this project. I think there's this sense that draconian measures are needed. However, I do believe that this wonderful report that VIMS put together addresses all of our needs and does it beautifully. Will solve the problem of protecting my neighbor's property, which incidentally, they have not lost an inch of their land. It will enable us to hopefully bring more sand to our beach, because I do believe that sand is our best protection, not rocks, not wood, sand. I've been on that beach for 70 years, ever since I was 7 years old, so now you know how old I am. We've been there for 70 years, and my dad worked to put in seagrass. We tried to be the best stewards of the property that we can be, and I totally understand my neighbors' needs, totally. I'm not ignoring them at all, not one bit. But what my goal and hope would be that we could work all together to build our beach. Now, it seems that the original proposal has been modified, and that may do it. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I do know that where I see rock up the side of a cliff and no groins right up the beach from us, there's no sand. And I used to walk on that beach, and now it's gone. So I urge you all to do everything you can to save my neighbors' properties, and there are more than one neighbor, but help us save our beach so we don't lose it. It means a lot to us. My mom and dad were both born within 5 miles of this property. We've been here for a long time. I appreciate the fact that so much has been put together to do this. I urge you, if you could possibly approve your own recommendation, I would be greatly appreciative. And thank you for letting me speak.
Is there any questions from the commission for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition? All right, that being said, matters before the commission.
Move to approve staff
Got a
recommendation.
motion to approve staff recommendations from Mr. Minor.
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Headley. Any further discussion? Being said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item is your turn.
This is a joint permit application by Rappahannock River Oysters LLC to apply for a floating aquaculture joint permit, number 2022-2254. They're requesting authorization to install 300 floating oyster cages within the boundaries of an oyster planting ground that they already leased, number 22489. It accompanies about 3 acres in the Rappahannock River in Middlesex County. This request is protested by nearby property owners. We've received 3 protests to date. One of those has a petition undersigned by about 54 people. So just as a proximity map, this is in the lower Rappahannock area. A little bit more specific, it's right off of Parrot Island there on the northern side to just get you oriented to the issues they deal with in this area. You can see that it's really not adjacent to any properties, any houses. It has a rather large fetch to it, but it definitely does not butt up against any houses. As required by 28.2606 of the Code of Virginia, this was advertised in a local newspaper, and it was adjacent notice was sent to any adjacent property owners within 500 feet. This is actually an expansion of a previous project that was done back and applied in 2020 and approved by this commission back in 2021. That original area is that southern area kind of in the dark green. That's where they already have a module sitting right there. So this would be an expansion of an existing module to really increase capacity in the same footprint, same area along the same lease. So this new proposed areas will be about 3 acres. And you can see the proximity to Parrot Island. It's about the drawings show it's about 915 feet to nearest upland property. When you go to the mainland, it's about a mile plus in any direction to the mainland and any kind of property. So staff evaluates the manner in which they want to do this. So this shows in that 3 acres, they're looking for about 300 cages, 12 lines of floats. Each one of those has about 25 cages per line. They're looking at anchoring each end with screw anchors, so that would be 24 screw anchors. It's about 2 to 4 feet on depth, depending on where you are in this application. This is very much in line with the industry standard. All the equipment is bought from Ocean Grow, so they're definitely the standard floats that you see, rather large, about 3 by 5. But when you look at the anchor strength and the line strength and how much those 25 cages would have an impact in that area, they're very much in line with industry standard and what's been done previously. So when staff evaluates the manner in which they want to grow oysters, staff has no objection to the permit drawings or the manner in which they want to grow oysters in this area. The bigger issue comes into public comments and weighing the public interest, what's the best use of subaqueous ground. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have 3 public comments. One of those public comments is a petition that has 54 undersigned. All those comments were sent to you beforehand, and they're in the packet in front of you. To summarize the concerns from those public comments, they're concerned about impeding the primary waterway access, the channels in this area, about 3,000 feet in any direction to any kind of channel marker. So they're not directly in a navigation channel. They're not on top of submerged aquatic vegetation. They're concerned about degradation of viewshed. Again, the closest property is about a mile from there. So we're not talking about directly from the houses, and there's already an oyster facility right there next to it. This is just an expansion. Reduced access to recreational activities such as fishing, swimming, and boating. One of the permit conditions that is written into none of these permits is you cannot restrict access to the public for any of these. So there is enough room to clearly canoe or kayak between them, but running high-powered boats through this area would not be reasonable. And then reduce property values as well. So these are all the concerns that are kind of outlined in those public protests. In summary, although staff has no objections to the project, staff is requesting guidance from this commission to either approve or deny this application, really just based on public interest and the best use of subaqueous grounds. We've seen considerations, we would like considerations of the objections raised by residents, comments concerning support of the requests, and consideration of public doctrine. If it is approved, there is an annual royalty in the amount of $649.02. It's based on the outline of the area of those aquaculture structures, as well as a surety bond for $4,500, which would cover the cost of any derelict aquaculture structure should any of them break free during a storm or anything like that. That's really the entire summary I have. I'm happy to take any questions. I know the applicant is here to answer any questions that are specific about this application, and I believe there probably are about 5 or 6 protestants that have been here today to speak.
Any questions? Mr. Erskine?
Thank you, Adam. I had a question about the existing structures that have been there previously permitted. Have you had any issues with some of the things that were outlined by protestants in their letters, such as access to a waterway and recreational activities?
So, as far as I know, we have no formal complaints to the agency about boating or accidents or anything like that. The original permit been back in 2021. The reason this one took so long is because they wanted to make sure that application worked in that area before they applied for something else. So they have updated the permit drawings. They've actually reduced the area that those floats encompass. They've reduced the number of lines and the number of anchors in that area as well. And really the only modification other than that they've made is turning it from a north-south orientation to an east-west. And that was to really cut down on that push from the water coming across the Rappahannock and allows for a little more ingress and egress. But it is not an expansion of what was approved before. It's actually a smaller footprint, smaller number of lines, smaller number of anchors. But no, we have not received any complaints or accidents in that area from the other one.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Branson?
Yes, sir. That AJ asked one of the questions I had, but my biggest concern with this application is the safe navigation of recreational vessels. I know the channels, there's 3 channels that border, actually circle this area. It's the Lochley's channel to the north-northwest, the Rappahannock River channel to the northeast, north-northeast, and then to the southeast is Mills Creek channel. Those are federally regulated navigation channels, and then there's a third, or fourth actually, is not regulated, which is a cut through south of the of Parrot Island. My biggest concern is dark floats, night, reflective tape certainly is not enough, and you say there's no reported conflicts, but as we all know, in the supermarket parking lot, people don't follow the lights, and recreational boaters have a habit of cutting the corners when they want to go into Lochley's channel to cut across that area. What does the applicant plan to do to mitigate that risk?
So the applicant is here, and I'm sure he can speak to some of these things, but he's talking about buoy improvements. You can see these U.S. Coast Guard would be approved at danger buoys on the 4 corners as you depicted right there, with also blinking lights. One of the recommendations from U.S. Coast Guard is they apply for these beacons. They're waiting to hear on the determination of this permit before they apply to get those on there. But they're already out there right now. It wasn't a request by U.S. Coast Guard on the previous permit, so they seem to be working. But the applicant is very much willing to do whatever they need to make sure that people don't run through this. Just a couple other things on here that the applicant said ahead of time when we talk about equipment specifications. This is probably over-engineered to be able to hold everything. Not too much concerns about industry standards as far as things breaking away, as well as a dedicated staff to be able to monitor this. I wasn't going to show this crude map, but since Mr. Branson brought it up, just something I put together. Those green markers are kind of the beacons or the channel markers that we're talking about a 2,700, 3,000 feet between each marker. There seems to be enough navigation room if people are following channels to be able to maneuver. That blue marking right there is really just both areas combined into one. However, if people do cut the corner and try and get down to 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of water, there's always that possibility if people aren't following proper navigation areas. So just to give you an idea of where those, and then the natural channel would be those orange lines as far as navigation based on those markers.
Follow-up. And he's got existing buoys, like those, I guess they call them Taylor floats, that are out there now unlit
We can ask the applicant exactly what he has out there.
Yeah, is it possible to make that a condition of our permit? I know it goes beyond our marking regulations that we have in our administrative code to, for perimeter markings. This is certainly above and beyond, and I encourage and endorse it.
We can put in a permit condition that requires marking. One of the reasons that the applicant put these forward in advance is he fully intends to put these out anyway, regardless of any permit condition. This was in an attempt to really just be forthcoming and make sure there was some kind of mitigation strategy out there. So I think the applicant can probably speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, no commercial waterman wants to cause injury or damage, and they don't want their equipment damaged either. That's my biggest concern with this, is the 3 channels that kind of, although it's 1,000 or 2,000 feet plus, the water depth between this proposed area and the Rappahannock River goes quickly from 4 feet, where they're going to be, to 6 to 7 feet, and that could, entertain some conflict. So I'd be interested in hearing from the applicant about any conflicts that have been in the past, near misses, impacts, or anything like that. But I do encourage that, as marking like that, and coordinating with the Coast Guard, because they regulate private nav aids, and to do that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant or representative for the applicant here and wish to speak, please? One at a time, please. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Ryan Croxton, I'm the owner, Rappahannock Orchard.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
State your name for the record.
Patrick Oliver.
Inside the microphone, please.
Patrick Oliver.
Thank you. Proceed.
I think everything was pretty clearly put out there, but I did want to be available for any questions. It sounded like you guys had some follow-up questions. Happy to answer.
Right. Yes, sir.
Any conflicts that you've had in the past with the previous lease that you had there?
No, I mean, we've been pretty happy with it. Obviously, we did go through some adjustments in terms of, shifting the orientation of the farm, because we did notice early on we were getting a lot of catch. I mean, you can draw this on paper and it makes a lot of sense, but when you actually put it out in the field, currents are going to move different than you expected. So we did change the orientation to try and let it bleed a little more and more energy go through it.
Follow-up, sir. When you're out there working this area and you have a lot of recreational boating traffic, how close do they come to your oyster lease area?
So Patrick is our director of farms. I'll let him speak to that. He's out there.
Yeah, I'm out there quite a bit. Mostly, I don't see a ton of recreational boating. I do see crabbers in the area. There's certainly crabbers that crab close by, but I haven't seen as much. Occasionally, there'll be someone who wants to fish around it. Occasionally, when I'm on my way out there, I'll see somebody who is using it to fish nearby, but not like very often. It doesn't seem like it's there's a lot of heavy traffic there. I think people see that island, they know it shoals up. So they kind of go around it and deter those sand shoals.
And we do work the cages interior of the line, so we have 35-foot gaps between them for our boats to be able to go comfortably in between them. So not that we encourage it, but I mean, it's definitely designed in a way to allow boats to go through it without causing any damage.
Mr. Erskine.
Thank you. Did you all know about the protestants prior to this? Did they approach you in any way or communicate their concerns to you all directly?
So we read the protests for sure, and no, not directly.
And as a follow-up,
Yes, sir, Mr.
what have you all done to address those concerns that you read about in the protestants' letter?
So I mean, for all of the concerns, I can take them one by one. We've tried to address them in terms of like the security of the site to make sure that cages don't get loose. We went by buying a system that was wholly designed instead of trying to do something that was patchwork, instead of doing something that had, our parts and their parts. We bought a whole system. We sought it from a company that, deals in Nova Scotia and deals in really extreme weather conditions so that we could have something that was more robust for our area. We went on the high spec end of everything that we had, from the rope sizes to the auger sizes, to ensure that we had something that wouldn't get away. The system's built with, double brake systems, so if one thing fails, it's got a backup fail-safe. As far as distance, we tried to seek a site that was as far away from anyone as we possibly could. While it looks like the whole middle part of the Rappahannock is open territory, it's all Baylor. So this was as far out as we could get, and it's a difficult environment to work in, but we also wanted to be conscious of the fact that we didn't want to be right up in people's faces with it. I'm trying to think of other questions. I'm sure they'll be brought up, and I can address them.
Thank
as
you.
we go.
Mr. Branch?
Well,
Oh, Ms. Husk, I'm sorry.
I noticed a lot in the protests, people were very concerned with the fact, the time required to sink the cages.
Right.
Should there be a storm. Do you anticipate that to be a problem? Have you had to sink them before?
We've not had to sink them before, other than just going through the exercise. But for most storms, we probably will ride out the storms. For storms that would pose enough of a threat to cause this kind of damage, our feeling is that those type of storms are forecastable. They don't just pop up on you, and so we'll have ample time to go out and do them. The dropping process can be as quick, if you want to do it in a sloppy fashion, can be as quick as just taking the screws off the end of each float, and they'll all sink. Obviously, we'd want to do it in a much more clean fashion so that our stuff doesn't cross at the bottom and we don't have a mess to clean up afterward. It makes it a little more difficult. But we can do it as quickly as in half a day, or we can do it, in a precise way where we can get it in a full day or 2 days to drop it.
Thank you.
Mr. Branch?
Yes, sir. As a condition of the permit, would you accept, I guess, as a condition of the permit, applying to the Coast Guard for private aids to navigation for the lighted portion of the buoys that you've already got out there?
For sure, and I'd love to go beyond that, and I'd love the education on this, is like how to get this embedded in people's nav for their boats, to make sure that this is seeable, even at night, or, if there's ways that we can do that, we'd love to participate in that.
As part of this process with the Coast Guard 2554 application, they update Coastal Pilots, which is a local reference, and all the nav aids, private nav aids and such. Whether or not it gets on a regulated navigation chart, probably not, but it may identify it as a fish haven or oyster aquaculture, such like that. That's part of that process with the Coast Guard, who maintains the navigation charts, and NOAA to make sure it's applied for. That's certainly a question for the Coast Guard, and so I encourage you to do that, and that's a condition that I hope you'll agree
Yes.
to, and we move forward with.
100%.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Did anyone else in the audience wish to speak in support of this project? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition of this project? Please come forward. As we'll try to keep this to 3 minutes apiece, please, if we can. Please state your name for the record.
Colin Wozencraft.
You raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, members of the commission. My name's Colin Wozencraft. I live in Topping, Virginia, actually roughly a mile from this installation near Regent Point. So that, as you may or may not know, is in fact downwind in a storm. Several neighbors and I put together a protest letter, and I'm speaking on my behalf as well as theirs as other riparian property owners in the immediate area of this installation. As was mentioned by staff, over 50 of us signed that protest letter, and some other people who signed it who are here today are going to give you more details about what we actually put in that letter. I say actually because when that was received on 4/22/23 by the commission, we were hopeful that it would be carefully reviewed by staff and presented to the commission ahead of any verdict. But our concern is that several of the issues that we raised, including adequate storm risk mitigation given the exposed location with, I believe, about 30 miles of fetch to the eastern shore, possibly inadequate engineering. It does not appear that any independent engineering review has been done in this case. So while the company may say that these are excellent and staff may say that they are probably over-engineered, it would seem prudent that independent engineering do become part of the permitting process. We are concerned about what appears to be a record of poor compliance with the existing permit conditions by the applicant. And we think that draws into question their veracity as they now expand. Some of my colleagues will speak more to that regarding Mr. Branson's questions about primarily navigational markings. I'd be happy at another time. Unfortunately, I can't give you the affidavit today to tell about a case of a neighbor who did in fact impact this very installation, the first part of it, when it was not marked as they claim it to have been, which we would be happy to provide aerial photography evidence of at that time. There has been at least one accident. We can show you evidence of the exact same system in the process of breaking free at Windmill Point, an area with 15 miles closer to the edge of the bay, but still directly in the same fetch over to the eastern shore. Lastly, we think that the possibility of real damage, whether it be to property or environmentally to wetlands and SAV in the area, is frankly inadequately addressed for remediation with what accounts to about $15 per float. Now, the float that I have the most experience with, and we'd be happy to show you a picture later, is one that was towed to our local beach by a separate waterman after he found it floating derelict in the bay. We did eventually move that. It is a 3x5 foot cage with 6 baskets in it. We were able to borrow an industrial tractor and use a front loader to move that because it weighed several hundred pounds. It couldn't be moved by 4 people independently, at least not without getting a nasty vulnificans infection.
Or can we wrap it up a little, please?
Yeah, sure. So from the staff summary, it appears that the issues that were raised were ones of access to navigation, degradation of view shed, so on and so forth. In point of fact, if you've read the letters from ourselves and Mr. Grab, those issues are nowhere in there. We instead are raising issues of storm risk mitigation, adequate engineering, remediation and the cost to do so, and a question of an applicant who has not done what they said they would do in the past. We're happy to point out that staff does recommend that a comprehensive review of these practices take place because the methodologies have changed. And we very much hope that such a review will happen expediently and that it will bring to bear best science from VIMS and the University of Florida, who have done studies of this. And we also hope that...
Sorry, I gave you...
and we thank you.
Wait a second, any questions? Any questions for the speaker?
Yes.
Sure.
Did you say degradation of view shed, it's not your concern?
That was never raised in our submission, and it was never raised in Mr. Grab's submission. I'm not sure if there was a third letter, but it's not in the staff summary, so I wasn't able to review it.
And what were the other two you said?
I believe that staff discussed impeding waterway access, degrading view sheds, reduced recreational access, and reduced property values. However, I would be delighted if you could show us any mention of those in the protests that were made. Since they haven't been mentioned, it unfortunately raises a question of whether a due process of the concerns has been attended to in this case.
I see the petition.
Any more questions from the speaker? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else here wish to speak in opposition? Remember, guys, it's 3 minutes. I went a little over that time, give you a chance, but let's stick to the time frame you're allowed. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Jack Helms.
Proceed.
Thank you for the opportunity for me to share my thoughts with you all this morning in regards to the permit request. Before I begin, I want to tell you, I am an oyster lover. So I'm for these folks, but at the same time, safety and concerns about compliance and non-compliance are where my concerns are. And I guess the first one is when we when you all approved the 2020-1239 permit, it was to deploy 300 floats and 145-foot lines with 15 floats in each line. And the permit stated, all activities authorized herein shall be accomplished in conformance with the plans and drawings dated July 14th, 2020. Aerial photography taken in August of 2022 indicates an installation had 25 floats running east-west at that time. So they were out of compliance with the permit that was in practice. And then the applicant is now coming forward in April of 2024 with modifications to go forward to what they've been practicing for several years. Non-compliance is what my concern is, and this should have been brought up, in my opinion, to VMRC before it was taking place. And tonight to communicate to you all, I think that is what my concern is about non-compliance. Next issue, we were talking about the navigational buoys. In an August 2020 email response from ROC to the Corps of Engineers, they stated that the four corners of the project would be marked for navigation by 49-inch upright marking buoys. And in March and July of 2023, several years later, just two markings again were on there, where they had committed to four. So their reaction time is slow, and that is what bothers me there. And there are now 4 buoys, and they are lit at this point in time. Again, but there was a lapse of over 2 years before that reaction took place. And my third and final one is the storm mitigation. Going back to the 2020-1239 application, they had stated that in case of a predicted hurricane, we intend to sink floats to the river bottom, and for that reason, we're also applying for a permit to allow us to have cages rest on the bottom. And this should render the system harmless to any potential surface disturbance. And it's my understanding as of May 25th, 2024, that still has not come to you all. So again, they've stated this is their intention, but years later, it has not been done. In closing, non-compliance with approved permits should, in my opinion, carry a burden of some financial penalty in order to make it significant enough so that they would have the impetus to be in compliance in a timely time. And I don't think non-compliance should be rewarded for an expanded permit. For the opportunity.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
The commission. Yes, sir. Question, and I think is probably for Adam. Is this company had many compliance issues that I keep hearing coming up?
So the compliance issues that you're hearing is for their past permits. And a lot of this is when we talk about these dynamic areas, it's figuring out what works in these dynamic areas. There is a certain amount of availability to be able to modify it as long as it's still within the permit that was approved by the commission. In this case, when they're talking about the number of lines, they've actually decreased the number of lines from what was approved. It's the same number of floats. The footprint is smaller. Instead of two modules that kind of ran north-south, you can see in that top right, now it's one module that runs east-west. So when they talk about compliance, yes, from 2021, what was talked about was those two modules that ran north-south. And where we are now, based on the dynamics of the area, same footprint, less invasive into the bottom, same number of floats, same area, still in line with the permit. And those permit drawings have been uploaded and are now associated with the permit as well.
Thank you very much.
So the adjustments were made sort of as a reaction to the non-compliance issues as a.
Correct, and that's one of the reasons why this one particularly was applied for in 2022. You haven't seen it yet, even though it was applied for in 2022 until those violations and and everything is cleaned up. So that's one of the reasons you did not see this permit in 2022, is to make sure that those violations that are known are cleaned up in a manner that is sufficient.
Thank you.
Ms. Kellum?
One more question while you're there, just for clarification. Is there another permit required in order for him to sink cages?
No, there isn't a permit required for, as long as they have that lease, which these permits are on top of the lease, you have the ability to have cages on lease as long as they're not 12 inches above the bottom. So that's kind of what they would be, is to be able to sink those to the bottom for temporary, to be able to ride out the storm before they come back up. So because the only thing they would be invading on is that lease, and they have that lease agreement, there's no sign off or anything like that they would need, especially on such a temporary basis.
Just want clarification after the last comments. Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. Derek Banks.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Before you proceed, take the gavel for a second. Up there. Please proceed.
We just, I represent Beverly Beach Association. We have 45 to 50 homeowners in our association. And we have concerns about the floats breaking loose during storms coming into our shoreline. We have probably 600 foot of beach and wetland. And we find debris all the time on our shoreline, cages, floats, and we perform a cleanup every year, once a year, and it costs us to hire a contractor to come in and haul all this stuff off. And I think our homeowners are concerned about the debris and stuff that wash up from these cages. We also know of a case over at Windmill Point where a reputable local engineer designed the cages and the lines for the cages. I have an aerial view of BMRC's post that shows the lines getting tangled on the bottom from a storm. And I think these need to be addressed. That's my comment.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Banks?
Sir, I have a couple of questions. What organization do you represent?
Beverly Beach Homeowners Association in Topping Street.
Okay, I see, Beverly Beach. That's almost west-northwest, I guess.
Right, and we get northeast storms, we get a lot of storm surge, and we get a lot of debris.
Yeah, the river's pretty wide there, so. About recreational boating traffic, would you say, coming out of, I guess, Lockleys Creek?
Lockleys Creek.
Lockleys Creek, there, that's probably the major source of recreational boating traffic, I guess.
Coming out of there, but we also have people in our association that have kayaks and paddle boats, and, you know, they got underwater cages also, which we are concerned about somebody falling through one of those racks with rebar and somebody getting injured. But we got some young kids that go out there swimming, and these cages are not as far as they say they are. These underwater cages are very close to our association.
Yeah, those are
That's a totally different cage.
leases.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please.
When you do the cleanup, are you stating that it's from their leases that have come up, their cages? Do they belong to them, and have you asked them to clean them up?
No,
or be
ma'am.
responsible?
We have not asked anybody to clean them up. We cleaned it up. But we've noticed some oyster bags, floats from the buoys, and we just clean them up. But we constantly get them every year. We do.
And they're from his oyster
I don't
grounds?
know who oyster grounds they're coming from, but we're getting them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And they're the same bag that they use in there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Anyone else in opposition? Please come on up. Please raise your hand.
Russ Perkinson.
All right, state your name. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to change a couple things that were said here because of some reaction to what the staff presented earlier. I'm really concerned, like the original speaker spoke, that the staff report did not at all represent the comments that were submitted. They represented other comments. I'm not sure where they came from. They weren't from anything posted with this permit. They looked more like generic ones or something pasted in from another permit where people objected to different issues. So I think, first, I don't think we're opposed to issuing a permit in some way at this site, but we still think, because of due process, it needs to go back, and staff really needs to look at their recommendations in those letters, not make up different things that we didn't say, and address what we said, basically. So I think the first point is we'd ask you to delay the permit issuance further. We don't want to come back next month or whenever, but we will, until staff has actually represented the protest concerns in the staff summary that was posted online Friday. Second, we'd like to see the house totally in order for the previously issued permit, including the storm mitigation permit, which, what I understand, you can have 12 inches off the bottom. Well, a float plus cages that are suspended under these are a lot more than 12 inches. So my understanding, I may be wrong, is you got to have a bottom permit from VMRC to do that. You can't just sink them unless they're less than a foot in profile. I think, thirdly, we think there ought to be a more credible amount for a surety bond. Interestingly, the applicant states in their application that they'll be purchasing a surety bond in the amount of $10,000 for the permit application. Their group comment letter provides that we think $10,000 is not enough, and I'll go into that a little later. But more importantly, the staff summary last Friday recommends a $4,500 surety bond. I mean, that's less than half what was proffered by the company, and I really don't understand. I've never seen a case with county government that somebody proffers something and the county says, no, you don't need to, just give us half of that is fine. So that really concerns me that that's happening. I listened to the derelict vessel presentation this morning, and I thought that's some kind of comparison as far as the cost. Not today's presentation, because I don't think we're talking about minesweepers and trying to clean those up. But last meeting, there was some data presented. It was very good data over the long term that said you cleaned up 40-some vessels and the cost had been some number. I did the math. It's $15,200 and some odd dollars. Seems odd to me that to clean up 300 floats, go collect them, take up all the pins, the augers, the buoys, all the lid lines associated with that, which the staff report isn't clear that anything needs to be removed except for the floats. But all this structure needs to be removed. Seemed to me, you know, the amounts you've paid on average for derelict vessel removal, abandoned vessels to be removed, it's probably a closer approximation of what a bond ought to be to clean up a site if the permittee is not able, or if they go bankrupt or some reason
Wrap it
such
up,
as
sir.
that.
I gave you a
So
few seconds over, just wrap it
that's,
up.
that's my comments with it. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I think we really would appreciate another look at this by staff to try to represent what we've asked for. We don't expect we'll get everything we asked for, but we think they're reasonable requests to have the applicant fully comply with everything. They put 25 floats in, they loaded the lines more heavily. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any questions for the speaker? Hold on one second. I have a question. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Please come forward. All right, guys, remember the 3 minutes. Y'all are beating me up here a little bit today. I'm gonna go back to my old self. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, my name is Gary Grabb. I'm owner of Parrot Island. I appreciate your time this morning. I am in agreement with what everybody has said so far. My protest letter is in there that I put on there in 31523 and my various points and arguments, and I still protest this. I'd like to add a few more comments, though, that I'm sure that you all are painfully aware of. It's apparent that there's a rather contentious conflict occurring every time an applicant for a water service aquaculture project comes up. The reason's pretty obvious. The waterfront property owners purchase what to them is a slice of heaven to be able to enjoy the beautiful views and recreational opportunities their property provides, while the commercial floating aquaculture proponents wish to use the same space to make money. These proponents repeat the mantra that growing sterile triploid oysters are good for the environment and watermen and will clean up the bay by filtering 50 gallons of water per day per oyster, as posted on the VMRC website. We know this rate is only achieved in perfect lab conditions using mature diploid oysters, but subsequent studies under normal conditions places filtration rate at a more realistic 15 to 20 gallons per day. Due to the advantage of not expending energy in reproduction, the triploid oysters have a faster growth rate, which you all know, growing from spat to a 3-inch prime oyster in about a year, and have the added advantage of being marketable in the summer months. Given the short lifespan and not even reaching what I would consider to be a mature oyster at 3 inches, I would expect that the average filtering capacity of these oysters growing from a fingernail-sized spat to a 3-inch oyster would be much less than that amount. I would guess that 1.5 gallons per day would be probably an overestimation of that. So the idea that the aquaculture of the triploid oysters is going to clean the bay is a false assumption. Furthermore, since they're sterile, they provide no benefit in expanding the native oyster population. An ever-increasing stock of mature native diploid oysters is the only meaningful way to improve the bay water quality. I've read that 100% of the oyster spat facilities is concentrated on only producing the triploid oyster. And it makes it seem that the VMRC and the oyster industry have given up on the native oyster. It also is becoming apparent that the desired outcome is to transition watermen from what they know and love to do, from hunter-gatherers to oyster farmers. But I don't really think that that's what the traditional watermen want to do. The solution to the conflict is pretty simple. Shellfish aquaculture should be confined to the growing cages within the water column, 12 inches off the bottom within an approved oyster lease, meet a minimum requirement of 5 foot of water depth at mean low water, which would provide the ability for people to still use that water surface for kayaking and whatever they want to do. And also it keeps them out of the SAVs, because SAVs don't seem to grow in much more than 5 foot of water. And if these things, the problem right now with some of the cages is that was referred to, that they are not well marked according to what the VMRC regulations require. And the appropriate signage is not there. These are requirements that people are ignoring and they're not enforcing. And I have a problem with that.
Sir,
But
can you
if
wrap it up?
floating,
You're running out of time.
Real quickly.
Wrap it up.
but if floating cages must be permitted, then there should be a quarter-mile setback from upland to cage location. That would eliminate any conflict with the SAVs and the residential property owners. It's a simple solution. It really needs to be done. Thank you for your time.
Is there any questions for the speaker? I want to correct you on one thing. You said we're giving up on traditional Worcester.
Say that again?
We're giving up on the traditional Worcester. We haven't. We're not giving up. I think we're getting more robust as time goes on, and we're getting more resources.
And I entirely hope so.
We're never giving up on any Worcester. So thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this in opposition to this matter? That being said,
I got a question about this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard from the public comments in reference to the concerns where it says written comments in opposition to the project include, which the folks who signed the petition say this is not representing them, where it says impeding the primary waterway access, degradation of the view shed of the area, reduced access to recreational activities such as fishing, swimming, and boating, and reduced property values. I'm trying to, maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see that in the packet. And they're saying that this is not something that they signed on to. Where it? This is their value.
So some of those comments were sort of have been via phone call. A lot of the comments that are represented in the written protest really revolve around the compliance with another application, application 1239. So we're aware of those comments. A lot of them have been remedied through the update of that. So that's where the other comments come from. I mean, I believe Mr. Grab just spoke about viewshed. We have had comments about being able to access the area through the waterways. So yes, although they seem generic, when we do get phone calls, and we do have concerns about those as well. But a lot of the written comments is specific to compliance with the old permit and what they believe will or will not happen with the new permit.
Thank you.
One question for Chief Kenyon. Regarding comments made about subaquatic vegetation, now Virginia Institute of Marine Science maps that.
Correct.
Is that applicable? Are they mapped? I know they've mapped some around Parrot Island, but they haven't mapped any in this oyster lease area.
This application does not encroach on the mapped SAV by VIMS.
Ms. Callum?
If it's appropriate, may I ask the applicant?
Yes, I was going to give the applicant an opportunity to rebut. Ms. Edwards?
I have a question for Randy. With the cleanup, did they ever get any permits fined for what they weren't, non-compliance?
I'm unaware of any cleanup. So if cages or bags did float away, they have not been contacted to the agency. And generally, the easiest response in there, and what applicants do is call me, I'll come get them. So it doesn't seem like, those bags, although they are washed up, are not necessarily tagged to this facility. And you can ask the applicant here, but I'm pretty sure they would be more than happy to go mitigate that cleanup as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Callum?
That was part of my question to the applicant. I believe their bags won't be received or tagged and marked. But there are a lot of homeowners up and down in that area that have bags on their docks that could be broken loose as part of the cleanup.
Absolutely.
But that was going to be my question to the applicant, if his bags were actually marked or ID'd.
I don't, the applicant can speak to that.
Mr. Erskine?
Adam, I had a question that was brought up by one of the protestants about the surety bond. So how did you arrive at the $4,500?
So the surety bond, we have a policy and we charge $15 for large, $750 for medium, and $350 for small. So with that, it's really just an application of 300 floats times $15 per float for mitigation, and that's standard across all our permits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant wish to have an opportunity to rebuttal at this point? Obviously, they're ready with questions, so be careful. Please state your name for the record, the microphone.
Yeah, Ryan Croxton.
Good, sir.
Just regarding the bags that you had mentioned, so bags don't really enter our process except in the seed cages. So we'll put seed in bags inside of our cages. So they're anchored inside of our cages, which means they're strapped in a lid inside of our cage. So to come outside of our cage would take a little bit of effort. The lid would have to come off, the seed would have to empty out, and the bag would have to move out. Otherwise, we put our oysters freely in the cage. We try to use bags as minimally as possible. There are bags in our floats, but all of our floats and all of our bags for our floats are accounted for since inception.
Are each of the bags marked with your identifying the information?
The bags individually are not marked. The cages are marked.
The cages, okay.
Yes. And just to address, because I feel like we've been sort of painted as being nefarious about some of our methods, like for the orientation of the project and changing the orientation, that was something that we kind of drifted into, trying to accommodate the waterways, and that's a mea culpa on, not doing that fast enough to apply for the retroactive, permit allowance. As far as putting the cages on the bottom and sinking them to the bottom, we were under the impression when we started our application a number of years ago that we had to have a separate application for that. We were informed during the process that JPA for the whole project was the application for sinking the cages. So that's why we didn't do an additional, that it was part of the original JPA.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Edwards.
They made a comment that you were 2 years delayed in getting the second 2 lights up. You had 2 and 4. What was the delay in that?
Mostly it was around supply chain. Trying to get those tailor-made buoys was incredibly difficult. So what we did was we put poles out with danger signs up, and we did that from the get-go, but accessing the tailor-made buoys was the problem, and figuring out the full anchor system, working with the Coast Guard regulations to make sure that we had all the proper latchings, to make sure that they would stay in place. That was a little bit of a curve.
So it's a supply chain that you couldn't get.
Getting all of the tailor-made.
Well, thank you, sir.
Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Erskine?
I just wanted to ask the applicant, one of the protestants brought up environmental benefits, spoke to some of the filtration and things of maturity of oysters. Regardless of that, can you speak to some of the environmental benefits as an operation that's been in business for a number of years, what those environmental benefits might be?
Yeah, I mean, they're numerous, but I almost hate to trade off on that as that's the reason we got into the business. We got into the business because we love the waters. We love what oysters do for the waters. But it's also a business, and no one's here to kid anybody that this isn't a business. We did want to see this. I have a heritage in this. My family started this in 1899. So I do want to see this continue. I think that it has to evolve from the way it was. I think the dredging methods, as they were very imprecise and very destructive to substrate. I think that aquaculture is our path forward, and I feel like, if we look on a broad base around the world, we do see that every other country has evolved into this. America's been very slow to graduate into this, and I think there is a way to do this in a very respectful way to the environment, to our neighbors, and to the food system. I think it's paramount, though, that we do something that's going to create a healthy, consistent product for folks. But yeah, as far as the benefits, the habitat that's created from our bottom cages is unquestionable. I think we've created a lot of stability in the substrate around our cages, with grasses being able to grow in between our rows. We're very careful about that to make sure that we don't impede on that. We work this stuff, like lifting a cage out of the ground. It's not a dredging process, so our process is meant to be incredibly sensitive to it. And obviously the animals, arguably, and we do a portion of our farm in diploid for the very reason that Mr. Grab mentioned, is that we want to make sure that they're giving back. It is impossible to have a business that is entirely diploid if you want to have any summer market. So we do have the mix, and we do lean more into triploid. I 100% acknowledge. But all of our shell, just incidentally, from a full circle standpoint, all of the shell, all the dead product that comes out of any of the doubles that we get, we put those out onto a kind of a self-created reef that we've put out in the waterway for that purpose of regenerating and doing all we can.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. That being said, matters before the commission.
Commissioner, thank you. One of the things I'd like to point out to my fellow members, if you looked at the online documents that Chief Kenyon's staff had published, and it's not in the booklet, There's one of the reason, the basis for all my questions about the navigable waterways and the risk is that there's one letter from the Coast Guard. They had one objection. It reads, and it's from the private NavAids navigation manager of the 5th District Coast Guard. It said, the Coast Guard has one objection to the proposed permit. A Coast Guard 2554 private aids to navigation application will need to be submitted for approval to mark the oyster farm. And this is with the Taylor floats that the gentleman just spoke of, not marking it the way we standard do. So clearly this is something above and beyond. It goes on to say that it states using white buoys with lights, those will need to have an orange diamond in the middle, orange bands on top and bottom, with 4 placed at each corner of the lease farm. I've attached the application. The owner may send it directly to me for approval. So that's in the online documentation that Chief Kenyon and Jeff Madden had applied. And with that, I'd be ready to make a motion.
Matters for the commission.
Sir, I move that we accept staff recommendation with an added 10th special condition that reads, the permittee shall submit a private aids to navigation application, Coast Guard 2554, to install lighted private nav aids to the perimeter of the lease area.
I would have a motion to add to the permit conditions, the addition of private aids to navigation.
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Erskine. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Comment. All right, is there anyone in the audience here today that wishes to speak during the public comment period on items that are not on the agenda, Please come forward. Please state your name for the record. It's 3 minutes. We're gonna hold you a little tighter this time.
Russ
You seem to
Perkinson.
get a little lost in the weeds last time.
Russ Perkinson, I'll still tell the truth.
Go ahead, sir.
So help me God. Okay. This is a global issue, not specific to this one permit. But I noticed in doing some research, staff suggested they put out $15 per float. That's been a...
Hey, sir, that was the last item on the agenda. You gotta talk about something.
I'm talking globally for the whole, any
No,
permit that
you
comes.
referenced that permit time
Okay.
again, I'm gonna sit you back there.
All right, I won't reference it again. But staff seems to have applied $15 per acre going back for some period of time, at least 5 years, I think, longer. There's been a lot of inflation since then, and I can't get, to get somebody to show up on my place, a contractor to do something like that, they're not gonna show up for that kind of money. So I can't get them anyway to do that sort of thing anymore. So I think you need an inflation adjustment factor on that. You probably need more than an inflation adjustment, because I don't think you can clean up lines and anchors and everything else associated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Well done. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak during public comment? Once again, items that are not on the agenda. Going once, going twice. All right. Mr. McGilly, looks like you're up.
Good morning, Commissioner, members of the Commission. My name is Joshua McGilly. I'm here to do a public hearing on proposal to amend Chapter 4 VAC 20-510, title pertaining to amberjack and cobia, to remove cobia aquaculture sections and create a separate cobia aquaculture permit application and permit condition document. And I promise it's going to be a lot shorter than my last one. So to start off with, currently all aquaculture requirements for raising and selling cobia are outlined in the cobia regulation. and removing these sections and creating a new cobia permit condition document will streamline the process of receiving a cobia aquaculture permit. So this is the same as striped bass and black sea bass that went in front of you guys the previous 2 commission meetings. So this is the third species that VMRC deals with aquaculture. So again, farmers will just submit a aquaculture application to VMRC for review. The application will ask for a facility location, what the facility will stock in the aquaculture system, and the facility plans to sell, and an estimated production capacity. So again, mirroring those 2 other processes. Once approved, the farmer will receive their permit, which will outline the permit conditions for acquiring brood stock, size limits, releasing fish, and selling cobia. The permit is required to be on display in the facility. Any cobia aquaculture permit shall be valid for 10 years from the date of issue and can be renewed by the commission if the permittee complies with all conditions of the permit. So that's all the background, so I'm just going to get into the reg changes now. So the first part will be in section 4 of VAC 20-510-35, titled Aquaculture of Cobia, permit required. On page 3, we're going to completely strike out section A that is currently there and rewrite it. So this is the only part that's going to stay in regulation. The rest is going to be moved over. And this new section will read, it should be unlawful for any person to operate a cobia aquaculture facility without first obtaining a permit from the commission. This permit shall authorize and define the limits of activities concerning the purchase, possession, sale, giving, receiving, and transportation of aquacultured cobia, and any person in violation of any permit condition issued under this section may have the permit revoked at any time. Upon review by the commission, if the commission revokes any person's permit for an aquaculture facility, then that person shall not be eligible to apply for a like permit for a period of 2 years from the date of revocation. So this is exactly what is in striped bass and black sea bass, just tailored to cobia now. We're striking out subsection B and C from the same section on pages 3 and 4, and then revoking section 4 of VAC 20-510-37, titled Aquaculture of Cobia, sales records, importation, and release. These 3 subsections and the previous 2 striked out subsections are going to go in that permit condition. So staff recommends the commission approve amendments to Chapter 4 of VAC 20-510-10, titled Pertaining to Amberjack and Cobia, to change and repeal the discussed cobia aquaculture regulation sections, and staff has received no public comments on this issue, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McGilly? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this matter, for or against? All right, we won't shop around long. Matters before the commission.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Second. Now move to accept staff recommendation. Mr. Branson, got a second from Mr. Minor. Is there any further discussion? That being said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. There being no further business, I think we're finished. This meeting is adjourned. The next commission meeting will be Tuesday, June the 25th, 2024.